In the last 24 hours, Mayon does not just wake up, it starts dumping heat and rock down its flanks. About 100 pyroclastic density currents in a single day, plus rockfalls, earthquakes, and ash drifting into nearby towns. PHIVOLCS just raised it to alert level 3 at 1:20 in the afternoon, and down below, that is not a statistic. It is families waking up to a knock at the door, the 6 kilometre zone, you have to go. Kids half asleep, meds and rice stuffed into bags, livestock left behind. By January 7th, about 3,476 people are already in evacuation centres. But here is what keeps me glued to the data. Is this the start of a mega eruption, or Mayon summit collapsing in a deadly loop? Mayon looks like a postcard, almost a perfect cone, until you remember it is the most active volcano in the Philippines. Since 1616, it has logged about 54 eruptions, and when it turns violent, it does not give you time. In 1814, Mayon's eruption buried communities and killed 1,200 people. That is the shadow hanging over Albay right now. Alert level 3 is not a fun sightseeing danger, it means magma is likely involved, and hazardous eruptions can happen. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, known as PHIVOLCS, and local officials draw a hard line, the 6 kilometre permanent danger zone. Inside that ring, you are not outrunning what Mayon produces, especially pyroclastic flows that hug the ground and follow valleys like liquid fire. So when ash is reported in places like Daraga and Guinobatan, and the summit keeps shedding hot debris, the evacuation is not a headline, it is a race against physics. As of January 7th, that race includes 3,476 people and 952 families moving to shelters, hauling what they can and leaving farms and animals behind. That is why Albay mobilises trucks, officials and evacuation centres. Once Mayon shifts from rumbling to collapsing, those channels can fill in minutes. Check with me for a second, because the phrase pyroclastic density current sounds technical, but the danger is simple. It is a ground-hugging avalanche of superheated gas, ash and rock, not a fluffy ash cloud. This is the stuff that flows downhill steered by gullies and river channels, moving fast enough that if you are inside the danger zone, your options shrink to basically zero. So why does 100 flows in 24 hours matter? Because that is not one big blast. That is Mayon, repeatedly shedding hot material again and again, like the summit keeps failing in bursts. Here is the mechanism I am watching. Mayon has a lava dome at the summit. Think of it as a thick, sticky plug being squeezed upward. It piles up, cools on the outside, remains hot inside, and is naturally unstable. When parts of that dome break off, they begin as rockfalls, and if the debris is hot and drags gas and ash with it, it can transform into a pyroclastic density current. Now the key question is this mainly dome collapse behaviour, or is fresh magma adding pressure for something bigger? Dome collapses can be relentless and deadly even without a classic explosion, but if internal signals shift, such as rising gas emissions, accelerating ground deformation, or a change in the earthquake types, then the story will change. On January 6th at 1:20 PM, PHIVOLCS makes the call. Mayon jumps from alert level 2 to alert level 3. The reason is not a single blast, it is a summit lava dome that is actively growing and failing, and that behaviour raises the odds of lava flows, rockfalls and pyroclastic flows inside the danger zone. By January 7th, the response shifts from monitor to move. Dromic tallies 3,476 evacuees, 952 families, spread across evacuation sites as the province tries to get people out of the 6 kilometre permanent danger zone. Then the 24-hour window hits. PHIVOLCS logs roughly 100 pyroclastic density current events, plus 72 rockfalls and 2 volcanic earthquakes in the same period. Hot flows ran down channels as far as about 2 kilometres from the crater. And the trend line gets ugly, 346 rockfall signals in just 6 days, compared to 599 in the prior 2 months. This is not steady unrest, this is acceleration. Underneath it, the mountain has been slowly deforming. PHIVOLCS notes the edifice, especially the eastern to northeastern sector, has been inflating since June 2024, meaning pressure has been building for a long time before this week's spike. One more piece, gas. Sulfur dioxide was about 195 tonnes per day on January 8. near background levels, so the surface violence is not automatically proof of a massive explosive phase yet. And PHIVOLCS director Teresito Bacolco puts it bluntly, this is already an eruption, just a quiet one, with lava swelling and cracking the dome. The next steps are watching for the moment those internal signals change. Down in Albay, the danger does not look like a Hollywood explosion. It looks like barangay staff knocking at doors before sunrise, saying the same sentence over and over, 6 kilometer zone. You have to go. I picture a father tying sacks of rice to the back of a tricycle, a grandmother clutching medications, kids staring at the cone that used to be beautiful and is now just loud. In the evacuation centre, the air is humid and crowded, and people keep checking their phones for the next advisory like it is a heartbeat. Officials say about 3,476 people and 952 families are already moved out. That is not easy logistics. That is buses, lists, roll calls, shelter assignments, and the constant worry about what gets left behind, livestock harvests, homes, near the gullies that Mayon uses as highways. Albay's teams coordinate food, water and security, while volunteers track who is missing and who refuses to leave. Every hour matters, because the threat is not just ash, it is the silent rush of a hot flow that can fill a river channel before you even understand it is coming. So what happens next? I see 3 lanes, best, likely, worst, best case. Mayon stays in a quiet eruption mode, lava keeps piling at the summit, but collapses shrink, and pyroclastic density current runouts remain trapped in the same gullies, topping out around a couple of kilometers. Gas emissions stay near background levels, earthquake rates do not increase, and alert level 3 holds while the 6 kilometer zone does its job. Evacuees ride it out, and people return in controlled waves. Likely case. The lava dome keeps growing in pulses, and each pulse triggers another round of collapses, with rockfalls by day and incandescent Usan by night. That means weeks to months of stop-and-go danger, not one dramatic climax. In 2023, Mayon stayed at alert level 3 from early June until early December, so a long evacuation posture is normal. Schools turn into shelters, farmers make quick daytime trips to feed animals, and nerves stay tight. In the worst case, the system changes character. Instead of the dome just breaking, it starts pressurizing and bursting, producing taller ash columns, louder explosions, and pyroclastic density currents that travel farther and faster, especially if a larger chunk of the dome fails at once. That is when you hear talk of alert level 4 and a wider exclusion zone. The warning signs I am watching are a sustained jump in volcanic earthquakes, more rapid ground inflation, and a sharp rise in sulfur dioxide that indicates gas is escaping from new magma. And there is one extra hazard people forget. Heavy rain can turn fresh ash and debris into lahars that flood the same river channels long after the glow fades. So here is the question I cannot let go of. Is Mayon gearing up for a truly major eruption, or is it trapped in a brutal cycle of dome growth and collapse? Because what I see on the slopes, glowing rockfalls and hot flows, can happen in both scenarios. The separator is underground. If this stays dome-fed and collapse-driven, the surface stays violent but steady, with repeated rockfalls, pyroclastic density currents confined to channels, gas outputs staying modest, and deformation not suddenly steepening. But if fresh magma is pushing higher, the pattern changes fast. More volcanic earthquakes, longer tremor, quicker inflation, and sulfur dioxide climbing sharply as new gas escapes. That is the line between a long, dangerous grind and a step up. And the next 48 hours of data start drawing that line right now. Here is my read, based on the signals you have right now. Mayon is already erupting, but it looks most consistent with a dome-fed, collapse-driven crisis, not a confirmed mega blast yet. The giveaway is the behaviour. Lots of rockfalls turning into pyroclastic density currents, runouts of around 2 kilometers, and sulfur dioxide near 195 tons per day, modest for a volcano that is truly venting huge new magma. That does not mean safe. It means the main killer is still the fast, ground-hugging flows inside the 6 kilometer zone, which is exactly why thousands have evacuated. What would change my mind? A sharp rise in volcanic earthquakes and tremor, faster inflation, and sulfur dioxide climbing hard for days. Until then, track the dome size, how far pyroclastic density currents run, and where ash falls. If officials expand evacuations, move early, Mayon's warning can be minutes, not hours. Watch PHIVOLCS updates, watch rainfall for lahar risk, and treat that danger zone like a wall. For real-time Mayon updates, subscribe and tell me where you are watching from.